This is the bike that I was the most excited about and the most anxious to ride at Outer Bike. But that means it was the bike that I was probably going to like, regardless of whether or not it was a good bike. I think that it is great that after you buy a bike, you decide, this is the best bike. But that sort of mindset is not great when you're trying to decide which bike to buy. So I knew going in that I really wanted to like this bike. I think that the technical term for this is confirmation bias. You sort of make up your mind about something before you've had the chance to test it out. So I knew this going in, and I tried to be aware of it, and I'll try to be aware of it for this review. So the question is, why? Why did I have so much stoke for this bike going into Outer Bike? Well, it's partially because the Boise trails where I ride are perfect for a short travel 29er. Also, I just really like Transition as a bike company. I owned a 2015 Transition Smuggler, so this was their old style of geometry before they got into SBG. And that was a really capable bike, and it helped me progress a lot as a rider. It made me wonder, why would you ever need a long travel 29er? It was a fantastic bike. I miss riding it all the time. I sold that Smuggler because I got sort of messed up in the head and decided that hardtails were the best bikes. They were all you needed. In fact, I remember telling my wife, I'm selling the Smuggler because it's just too capable and it makes riding normal trails kind of boring. It's just too good of a bike. That did not make any sense to my wife. She didn't understand it. And thinking back on it now, it really doesn't make that much sense to me either. So, I love hardtails, don't get me wrong, but I should not have sold my old Smuggler. For those who don't know what the Smuggler is, it's a short or mid-travel trail bike that is a little more aggressive. It likes to get rowdy. So this bike, the 2019, it was updated to this style geometry in 2018. They did some geometry tweaks and they called it Speed Balanced Geometry, or SBG. And this new style of geometry is definitely not just a gimmick. A lot of other bike companies have since followed suit, offering longer reaches, shorter stems, steeper seat tube angles, and reduced offset forks. It's really interesting to me that Transition was one of the first to this party in the woods, despite being a smaller brand with less resources. Just goes to show that these guys at Transition, they're not just a bunch of goofballs who just make funny videos and meaningless acronyms. Well, they do that too, but it's not just that. So SBG is their first acronym that actually has any real meaning. But what does that mean out on the trail? I am not super sensitive to bike geometry. I can't get on a bike and tell you that this has a reduced offset fork or this is, super slack head angle just by the feel of it. I have a friend who can do that. So I don't know exactly what it is about the speed balance geometry, but I will say that I instantly felt comfortable on this bike. This was my first run going down Mindbender at the bike park in Sun Valley, and I will say that I just felt like this bike was doing everything I wanted to do. It felt almost like it was just a part of me, like it kind of disappeared under me and just did what I wanted it to do. I was able to adapt to a new trail and a new bike at the same time pretty easily. I did just one run down the mountain on this bike, so I didn't do any technical climbing. There is some pedally sections, definitely for sure, on this trail. And so, like I said, I can't speak to the technical climbing, but I did feel like I got all the power out of the bike that I put into it. As far as dislikes, I didn't like the SRAM level T brakes. They just I didn't feel have enough power for what I like. And I think this bike definitely deserves better brakes. I didn't really get along great with the Revelation fork. Again, one run down the mountain. Can't really speak to a whole lot of it. Just might have been a little bit of a setup issue. I was riding a large bike, which for my size, on the sizing chart at Transition, I'm kind of borderline between large and extra large. I'd go with an extra large on this bike for sure. I rode a extra large Sentinel later in the week, and that fit me really, really well. So that large bike didn't have quite enough stack or enough reach for, I guess, what I wanted. But onto the positives. This bike was awesome. I had so much fun riding this bike. It felt poppy. It felt playful. It felt like I wanted to mess around. It felt like it was just a happy bike. I had ridden the Stump Jumper Evo earlier in the day, and these two bikes were very different. It was a nice contrast between something that's more plowy and something that is more poppy. And this Smuggler felt poppy. It felt fun. Definitely more capable than what I rode. I think that this bike could get very aggressive, get very rad. So the question is, would I buy this bike? And you know what? I just very well might. It had the matte orange finish on this carbon bike, which I just loved. It looked awesome. And I know that the way it looks isn't the most important thing, but it sure doesn't hurt when it's your favorite color. I would like to try out an extra large Smuggler. I wasn't able to during the demo event. They were just perpetually out. I also would like to ride an alloy version and see if there's a difference there. Right now, Transition is only selling the alloy as a frame only.
This is fun.
But this is definitely an awesome bike. It could be your only bike. I think it's capable to do a lot more than what you might think a short travel 29er could do. I also want to give a shout out to the guys at the Transition tent. Their names were Blake and Harv, I think. They were super cool guys. Could definitely tell they were real riders. They were very helpful. I asked them a bunch of questions, chatted their ear off. Really cool guys. I also think Transition is just a cool bike company.
That's sharp.
Well, I'm kind of a fanboy, so I have a biased opinion. But you should know that I have two other friends who also rode the Smuggler that weekend at Outer Bike, and both of them are seriously considering this for their next bike.